What is up, guys? We're back talking about Dexter Resurrection, and now we are on episode 5 that was titled Murder Horny. And overall, I'd say that this is another solid episode so far, but I would also say this is probably my least favorite episode of the 5. Not that it's bad, not that it's a stark difference of the first 4 or a sharp decline in quality, but there was things in this episode that some things I don't know how I feel about yet. Got to see how they develop. Some things I just didn't outright like at all. And I'm starting to get worried now that we're literally halfway through the season on how we're going to wrap a lot of these things up in a satisfying way with only 5 episodes left. First, talking about the main storyline, which is Dexter's storyline. The episode opens up, which is continuing on from the cliffhanger in episode 4, where he reveals himself to Harrison. And he essentially skirts away with Harrison to go talk privately. He takes him to his little basement apartment. And they're sitting down and having a conversation. And I thought this was a really good scene, but I did get very worried very quickly that Harrison was going to turn back into the Harrison that I could not stand from Dexter New Blood. As soon as they start interacting, Harrison basically goes back to that, like, fuck you, dad kind of mentality, which, again, he has legit narrative reasons to feel that way. I even said that in New Blood. They just did it way too often. It was way too one note in that series. So once he started to be that way, I was like, oh God, no, not him again, fuck. But luckily, the context of the conversation was very interesting. Of course, they talk about Batista, where Harrison kind of reveals that Batista had found him and was investigating him and thinks very strongly that Dexter is the Bay Harbor Butcher and was trying to get information out of Harrison. So now if there was any confusion whatsoever on Dexter's end, that's pretty much put to bed, and he knows that Batista is going to be at him like a fucking fly on shit until he figures out that he is the Bay Harbor Butcher or gets killed in the process. And that better not be how they resolve all this. So it was intriguing to finally have all those cards on the table. But the most important piece of this conversation, which I actually kind of forgot has not been a piece of their conversation yet, was Dexter revealing the nature of Rita's death, of Harrison's mother's death, talking about how he was very intrigued and fascinated with the Trinity Killer and how he wanted to learn from him and figure out how he's able to balance this family life as a father and a husband and a church deacon and everything with his serial killer urges, and ended up blurring the lines between mentor and target until it was too late. And I think that moment of Dexter being honest and just laying it all out there and basically taking all the blame, saying, hey, here's the reason why. Yes, it was my fault. I think that there was a bit there that was interesting to see Harrison kind of respect the fact that he finally told the truth and he has all the details. And that was probably something that was a giant hole in his soul for a while, is not knowing why this happened and really holding his father accountable for it because he just didn't know the details. It's just, oh, it's probably your fault, so fuck you. So I think that was a very important piece of their relationship development that I'm glad we finally got out there. And, you know, Harrison talking about his first kill, Dexter basically saying, hey, I know you did this. That's the reason why I'm here, to try to protect you, to watch over you. And Harrison not really knowing what to do with that information. Like, I don't really know if I want you watching over me. I don't know if I want to have to be indebted to you for all these things. I kind of want to deal with this by myself, but obviously I'm not as experienced as you, so I'm kind of sucking at dealing with this situation by myself. I thought that was a really layered, nuanced kind of conversation there, and something that is very intriguing about their relationship. And especially that towards the end of the conversation where Dexter starts to talk to Harrison about how I understand what you're going through. Like when I did my first kill, and they very deliberately put flashbacks of the original Sin version of these events, which is interesting, where he did his first kill and things like that, and saying like, hey, I resisted for a long time, and it wasn't until I did my first kill that I felt like this release. And now that's why I do this. I understand who you are. I am who you are. And Harrison kind of throws a sword in that logic and says, I'm not like that. Like, I'm miserable. I killed this guy and it's haunting me. I hear this watch ticking all the time. It's making me sick. And the realization on Dexter's face was very complicated. It was like a part of it was kind of shock and maybe even a little bit of disappointment of like, oh, fuck, he's not somebody like me. He doesn't have all the same urges as me. We don't have as much in common as I thought that we did. That was something that very closely tied us, and now that's kind of severed. And there's also a part of his performance that's very much relieved in that, of like, oh, thank God you're not like me. And so that was also very interesting. So a conversation that I got worried for a moment, but overall I thought was a really well-written, well-performed advancement of these two characters who haven't talked in the last 4 episodes since Harrison thought that he killed his dad. The moment there where he asks him, like, how are you still alive? Again, like, it's almost like the show is trying to believe its own bullshit, where he's like, oh, I got all the charges dropped because Logan shot at me. It was self-defense. It's like, bitch, no, it wasn't. No, stop. Like, again, I could have used anything in that moment, like a little voiceover where he says that and the voiceover says like, well, not really, or something to acknowledge, yeah, it's kind of bullshit. Like, it's a stupid series of events that should not have worked. But whatever. Again, these are things to clean up after New Blood's mess that we just have to kind of go along with. But yeah, when they said that, dead serious, I was like, really? And then pretty much the rest of the episode is all about Dexter linking back up with Lady Vengeance and basically pursuing a relationship there, which I've really been into. Like, I love Kristen Ritter. I think that they have a really good chemistry with each other. I think there's something intriguing there with her being seemingly another killer that has a code and only takes out bad guys and is somewhat of like a dark avenger. I think there's something really cool there where it's kind of a Hannah McKay situation where he's intrigued with somebody that has this darkness in them, but it's a darkness that's more akin to his. So it's not quite as taboo. It's not quite of a conflict of interest, if you will. So I enjoyed all their scenes where he's trying to get back up with her and kind of make up for walking out after she was more or less inviting him into the shower, and eventually goes bowling, which was a great little callback to season 2. And he picks up the 7-10 split and still loses. Again, classic Dexter moments there where it's got that subtle, like self-aware dark humor that I love. And eventually leading to this scene in the bar where they're kind of flirting with each other to the point where she wants to do a kill together, almost like having a threesome. She actually calls it a menage a trois. So again, darkly comedic, funny. I enjoyed that, the tongue-in-cheek nature of it. But then we get this reveal that Lady Vengeance actually isn't like Dexter at all. That it's kind of just what the tabloids and the news and social media dubbed her as, when really she's just as fucked up as all the other people in this secret society of killers. Yes, she started off killing people out of revenge of sexual assault and things like that, but eventually the need to kill and the enjoyment of killing took over, and she just kills, whoever whenever she needs to do it. And I think that's an interesting reveal, but I don't know how I feel about it yet, because it feels like it was much more interesting when she was like Dexter. Now that within 1 episode of them hanging out with each other, it's revealed not to be that. Kind of feels like you take the most interesting thing away from that character. We'll see where things go. Maybe it'll get a little bit more complicated, but there was something about that reveal where I was like, oh, like, if you were going to reveal that, it feels like that would have been stronger to reveal later on, maybe after they really start to develop some romantic feelings for each other. The fact that we got it so early on, I don't know how I feel about that. It gives a little bit of the smell of rushing, which is why I'm worried about this 10-episode season. Like, maybe there could have been more there, but we got to get this shit taken care of because we have 3 other characters to kill before we even get to Peter Dinklage. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. I did like, however, the fact that Dexter is initially planning on just taking her out. He goes to the back, he gets his little M99 needle ready, and his dad's sitting there like, oh, I don't like to say I told you so. Like, I love how Harry's integrated so far in this season, but then he has that realization of, yeah, if 2 of his people disappear within the 2-night span, it's probably gonna be a little suspicious, so let's not do this. Maybe Harry was right. And I like this scene where he basically lets her go on her kill. She said she's murder horny, whatever, I'll go do it by myself. This is very disappointing. She goes, picks a random guy, takes him back to her place, and looks like she's gonna like skin him alive or something like that. Like, I wish I kind of knew more about what her MO is, because she had some gnarly stuff set up there. But right before she's about to do something, you get the scene with Dexter where he calls, and I love Michael C. Hall doing the fake New Yorker accent. I thought that was hilarious, where he's calling in and reporting her, and the cops, SWAT or whatever, bust into her apartment, and now Lady Vengeance has been caught. that in and of itself I thought was cool and different, and kind of adds to that note that we had at the end of episode 2, where Harry's like, since when do you care about other people? Like, this is a new thing for you, Dexter. And I didn't really buy into that. To me, it's like, well, it's not really new. A lot of times this show acts like things are new when we've actually explored them before. But this is new, where he is willing to not get his nut, essentially, with the kill, with the murder horny shit. And he's just like, whatever, as long as she's off the street, then that's good enough for me. I don't have to be the one that puts her on my table. Like, that was something that happened in season 8 with the brain surgeon, and it led to Deb's death. So I didn't think we'd ever explore that with Dexter again. The one time that he decided to give that up, it cost him everything. So I dug that. And even more so, I got a really nice little surprise moment whenever they're investigating Lady Vengeance's apartment and they find the watch to the guy that Harrison killed. For some reason, I didn't expect that. I was like, oh shit, that's really smart, because sexual assault. Hey, there you go. And so Dexter frames Lady Vengeance very effectively to take the blame for Harrison's murder. There's now no doubt whatsoever. There's no reason to believe there's anything more than that, because he totally fits her MO. I thought that was very smartly written. And even though the watch kept coming up, for some reason, I didn't think about that being a possibility. So when that popped up, I was like, oh, hell yeah. That's that smart Dexter I love seeing. Now you have the detective character that pops in for this moment that seems like she's not completely satisfied. I don't know if it's just the thrill of the hunt, where maybe it's like the different side of the coin with the serial killer hunt, where she wanted to bust somebody for it, and instead just Lady Vengeance gets busted and they find out it's her, and it's like, oh, okay, well, and that's kind of anticlimactic. So I don't know if that's going to be something that she's going to gnaw at, or maybe the one scene that we got with Batista where he sees the news report of Lady Vengeance being dubbed the murderer of this guy, and he's like, what the hell? Like, maybe he's going to be the one who's going to continue to gnaw at it with her and saying, like, I don't know, man, like this guy, his dad is this person, and they seem to always get out of things and slip out of them. We need to keep pursuing it. Maybe that's where things are going to go. I was a little frustrated that we only got one moment with Batista. I do think that of all of the different plots going on, his is getting the least amount of attention, which is strange. Maybe that's because they're trying to stretch the Batista storyline over a few seasons, which would make sense to me, but it feels like we're just getting nuggets with him when we should get a little bit more substance. And maybe in the back half, we'll get a lot more. But yeah, I was unsure about revealing the thing with Lady Vengeance so soon, and I'm still not completely sure how I feel about it, but I did like the way it ultimately played out with him turning her in and framing her. Then we eventually get a revisited scene with Dexter and Harrison, where Harrison essentially finds out that Lady Vengeance was now caught with this watch and immediately puts it together and goes to his dad, and they resolve things very quickly. And I like that, because I did not want to have another season where it's Dexter and Harrison just back and forth and not really getting along, and the teen angst. Like I said, I don't want Harrison from New Blood. So the fact that Dexter really pours his heart out to his son is like, I just want to protect you. Like, there's so many reasons I have to kill, but you're the only reason I have to live. That was a nicely written line. And then you have Harrison just kind of put his hand on his dad's. Like, I like that. I'm glad to see that we can kind of resolve that shit. Of course, there's still going to be some tension, some complication, but I'm glad that we can get back to the point where we were at in episode 9 of New Blood, where now they're linked up, now they understand each other, and we can hopefully get a decent amount of this season where they stay in that realm. So everything going on with Dexter in this episode, I really enjoyed. Just, on the fence about the Lady Vengeance thing overall. Now, we do get a little bit more focus here on Peter Dinklage and Uma Thurman, and while it's interesting to see that we're going to learn more about their characters, this is the part of the episode where I did feel like it's starting to feel like we're balancing maybe a little bit too much, because we're doing Dexter, his storyline with his resurrection. We're at Dexter integrated into New York, Dexter integrated into this secret killer society, Dexter trying to protect and watch over Harrison, Harrison's investigation, Harrison's little love interest, Batista's investigation, the detective's investigation, and now we're going to get into the storylines of Peter Dinklage and Uma Thurman and Lady Vengeance. Like, a lot of things being balanced for a show to only have 10 episodes, but we'll see where things go. So Peter Dinklage does like this little interview on this news report where essentially he kind of gives himself like a Batman origin where his parents were killed and he ends up being a foster kid and now he's kind of like giving back. And I don't know what that is. If that's actually a true origin for his character, is that going to mean that that's like he felt like an outsider and people let him in, and so that's what he's trying to do to serial killers, where they're kind of without family, and he's trying to make them a family? Maybe. Is it something as simple as he's just a really fucked up guy and wants to be liked by the public, and so that's all bullshit? Like, I really don't know where that's going, but I'm very intrigued with this character overall. And then you have Uma Thurman, where it shows that her mom is in the hospital. And I'd have to watch it again. Maybe there was more details of what exactly was going on with her, but very clearly she's sick or towards the end of her life. And it's kind of reinforced later on after Lady Vengeance is captured. And Uma Thurman goes to Peter Dinklage and basically tells him. And he basically says to take care of it, and she's like, it's gonna be difficult. Like, she's literally behind like maximum security, and he basically says like, I hired you to solve problems. Did I make a mistake? And she says no. And the acting in Uma Thurman was really interesting in this episode, because now it's kind of giving the tone that she really doesn't like working for Peter Dinklage. Like, a lot of the things that she does, she doesn't want to do, or she feels trapped somehow. And again, I watched this very late at night, so maybe there was something that actually directly said this, but I was getting the impression that Peter Dinklage is providing something that's keeping her mother alive, or maybe helping her family. Like, maybe he's the one giving her the medical care or something. There's something that he has over Uma Thurman that more or less has her trapped and indebted to him. And she doesn't seem to like it so much. So I'm curious on where things are going to go with that. It felt like Uma Thurman was going to be like the big bad before the big bad. Like, Dexter was gonna have to figure out a way to take her out, and she was gonna be the hardest one, and then Peter Dinklage is just like, all right, bitch, it's just you now. Now I'm starting to think that maybe Uma Thurman's going to end up helping Dexter at some point, or there's going to be something more of a complicated scenario later on. So I'm very intrigued with that. Overall, like, an episode where there's not a ton of different things to talk about. I've pretty much covered everything here, but the only thing that I'll say as well that's kind of on the negative side is I'm not necessarily loving his friendship, his relationship with his landlord buddy. On one end, when I got my wife caught up on this show, she's like, is that the guy that does the voice for Rafiki? And now every scene this guy's on, all I do is I hear Rafiki. He's not, by the way, but my wife ruined it now. Every time he's on screen, I'm like, oh, it's Dexter and Rafiki. Great. Thanks, honey. But beyond that, it's, I don't know. There's something about their relationship that just feels like the dialogue is not as well written in those moments. Like, I like his character. There's something warm and friendly and just very like human about this guy that I enjoy. I don't want to see him end up like being like a collateral damage victim or anything like that, but they're just not doing anything compelling yet to get me to totally buy into this friendship. Like, it was a weird thing right off the bat where he's like, hey, by the way, you know, there's a serial killer that's murdering all of our U-car drivers. He looks a lot like you. Come to my barbecue. That was a lot of contrived bullshit right off the bat. But I was like, okay, whatever. Like, as long as he's a good character, maybe something like Brother Sam, I'm into it. I don't think they're doing anything nearly as compelling as that, at least not yet. So, not a huge negative, but something where I was like, wish you were doing more with this guy. But overall, another solid episode. Still enjoying the show. I don't have huge worries yet. Just little things where I'm like, okay, getting slightly nervous. But what did you guys think? What did you think about episode 5? What do you think about the show so far? What are some directions you expect things to go? Do you think 10 episodes is enough, or are we going to run into a rushed finale? Let me know all your thoughts down below, and we'll talk again in a week. That's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed that, click over here for all of my Dexter content so far, all my reviews of every single episode of New Blood and Resurrection and all of the previous 8 seasons of the show. And up here, I'm going to throw a ranking of all the Dexter antagonists up. Like, share, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss everything in the future. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.